Yep, I'm in Act 3. This is just me being me. I hope you'll see God's not through with us yet.
Hey everybody, welcome back. And there again, I'm assuming there's more than one body out there. Maybe there are just two of you out there, or maybe I'm going to need to put a mirror up and just talk to myself after that first podcast. But I'm glad you came back. Just wanted to share a little bit more about why I'm doing this and a little bit about my background. Some people have asked, what is the story about these lyrics? I think you can see on the bottom of the podcast that there is a tagline running that maybe points you to my website. That has my music on there. And I don't have 20 years of writing. I don't have 30 years of writing. I have maybe 8 months of active writing, really 2 years kind of playing around with it, which I'll get into later on in a future podcast, if there's going to be one, if I've got anybody out there who's willing to stick with me on this. But if you go to the website related to my music, you'll see music videos and you'll hear different songs that I've written. And let me clarify, I am just the lyricist. I don't sing, even though I was told I needed to learn to sing. I said that ship has sailed. I'm not going to do that. And I don't play an instrument. I wish I had those skills. I'm so in awe of those who have been gifted with singing and playing and writing and all of this. And when you watch some of these talent shows and they started doing all of this when they were 2 years old, it is just absolutely mind-boggling. I talked to one of our ministers of music at my church, and he said when he was 3 years old, he used to see notes floating across his eyes when he would hear music. What a gift from God, and what a wonderful gift to be revealed at such a young age versus evidently I've been told I have a gift for writing revealed to me in my 70s, but God's timing is perfect. I'm not trying to rush this, although you would think I would need to be rushing this since I'm kind of in that, latter chapter of my life, but I'm just taking it one day at a time and writing accordingly. But you'll hear Christian music being recorded by me, and I'll share a little bit more about how that was discovered, and that was an interesting story as well. I didn't mention in the first podcast that I'd like to share a chapter of my life when I was in my 20s, which was about 110 years ago, I think. Some days it feels like that. But in my 20s and probably late teens, one of my sorority sisters in college dated Elvis for 5 years, and she was in our wedding and still a close friend. And I'd love to share those stories of teaching school during the day and going to Graceland at night and getting to meet other people in that industry. And there's some nice little stories about that as well that I would love to share with you. I have to joke and say, I think I may be the only person, there may be a few of you out there who ever had Elvis sing Love Me Tender to you on the phone. Gosh, wouldn't it have been great to have had an iPhone then, because then I could have recorded it and I'd be retired living in some wonderful Caribbean resort now, but that didn't happen. It was just my ears hearing it, so I'll be happy to share that as well. And the Act 3 again, the 60-ish and above, we're viable. There are many people who are starting businesses at the age of 50 plus. You can't force wisdom. And I think that's what the Lord reveals to us as we get older. He's granted us wisdom that sometimes these youngsters don't have, although you hear the expression about a young person having an old soul. I've met some of those as well. But I think we can offer quite a bit in that world of wisdom. And I'd love to talk about that. And once again, ask you, if you will, take a minute just to share a point of wisdom, of life lessons, just a word that has been an encouragement to you. I'll tell you a quick aside. You don't know how words can touch people. When I was at our local YMCA, and you don't have to do the music, the little, this little thing, all that. No, that's okay. I do that in water aerobics. That's enough. But I have a white car, and when this huge parking lot, I'd try to remember where I parked my white car. But when I'd come out of class, there were probably 600 white vehicles out there. And I thought, this is ridiculous. Some people pop their hoods, they sound their alarm on their keychain, trying to find where their car is. I've heard that going off for a long time now. And that's the only way you can find your car. Well, I went to the director of the Y and I said, I know I'm old. And I said, and I need help. He didn't say, oh, no, you're not old. He kind of shook his head like, And I said, I have a suggestion. I said, why don't we name these 9 lanes and name it after each lane the fruit of the Spirit? Because there are 9 of those. And he thought, that's a great idea. So I wrote him a check for the cost of making the signage. And we had the love, the joy, the peace, the patience, the kindness. So I made sure to look at the lane where I was parked and what fruit was represented there. I was told yesterday by that Y director in our former hometown, he said, you know what? He said, you don't know what those signs are doing. And this was just, once again, God planted in me to do. But he said, my wife was having a really bad day, and she went to the Y reluctantly to do one of her classes. And she looked up, and she had parked on the lane labeled peace. And she took a picture of that sign, and she put it on her Facebook. And I thought, gosh, I said, thank you for sharing that. But, it's just a little something that can make a big deal in people's lives. So once again, impressed upon by God to do that. Holy Spirit, yes, to do that. But I did it, selfishly because I'm old and I didn't want to pop my lid on my trunk and sound my horn. I just needed a way to remember where my car was parked. And who knew that God had another purpose for those signs going up. So anyway, that's me. And you'll learn a little bit more about me if you stay with me. I'll try to keep these podcasts short. I know your time is valuable, but I hope there will be something, as we say, that might trip your trigger, either something I say or something somebody else says and that I put out there. But if we maybe all work together, it's going to be a really great ride. So hope to see you soon. Take care. Bye.
Yep, I'm in Act 3. This is just me being me. I hope you'll see God's not through with us. Yes.